Thank you for joining us for the webinar today. My name is Tracy Maxwell, and I'm the founder of hazingprevention.org, as well as the current Director of Education and Programming. We're excited to reinstate our webinar series after a few years without it, and we welcome your input about topics of interest to you and feedback on how we are doing with each program. Before we get started with today's content, I'd like to share a little bit about what is coming up for hazingprevention.org and how you can engage with our programs and services. HPO was founded 10 years ago, and our mission is to empower people to prevent hazing. We do that in a variety of ways, including an annual Prevention Institute each summer. It's not too late to register for this year's program. Sponsorship of National Hazing Prevention Week. Awards and contests to recognize and engage students and others who are doing good work. A variety of resources and books, and an online course called Hazing Prevention is Everyone's Responsibility. Please check our website for more information on upcoming webinars as well. Our goal is to host at least one each month throughout the year. You can read more about what we do and apply for or nominate others for our awards and contests on our website. But for now, I want to move on to the content you came for today. Today's presenter, Sarah Wild, will introduce herself in more depth shortly, but I just want to say how grateful hazingprevention.org is for her long and dedicated service to the organization. Sarah's been a volunteer for us since she was a student at SUNY Plattsburgh and has served in a variety of capacities, including with social media, in particular our 40 Actions Twitter campaign, which takes place annually in the lead up to National Hazing Prevention Week. This year it will start on August 15th, and most prominently with National Hazing Prevention Week itself. Her experience with this Awareness Week and dedication to ensuring that programming is effective and deliberate make her the perfect person to lead this webinar today. Without further delay, I want to welcome Sarah.
Thanks, Tracy. Welcome to Preparing for National Hazing Prevention Week, brought to you by hazingprevention.org. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. Throughout the webinar, we'll take 1 to 2 minute breaks for all of you to ask any follow-up or clarifying questions in the chat box. So please jot down your questions or comments as we go along. This presentation is intended for a wide audience, as hazing can take place in a variety of different types of student groups, both at the high school and at the collegiate level. Hopefully, this webinar will serve as a resource for you and those around you striving to prevent hazing. Before we get started, I'd like to thank and recognize our National Hazing Prevention Week sponsors, our leading sponsors to the left, and our supporting sponsors to the right. We really couldn't do all the things that we do as an organization without these very important partnerships. They truly are essential to our success. Thank you to our sponsors for your continued commitment in helping to prevent hazing. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor for HPO or supporting our efforts as an organization, I'll touch on these opportunities towards the end of our conversation today, so stay tuned. I'm your presenter, Sarah Wild. I've been working professionally in higher education for 5 years, both in fraternity and sorority life and in career services. I believe that all students should have a safe and positive experience during high school and college, which is why this cause is so important to me. I've been volunteering for hazingprevention.org, as Tracy mentioned, since I was a collegian when I experienced hazing firsthand as a new member of my sorority. I'm a past recipient of the Hank Newer Anti-Hazing Hero Awards and an active fraternity and sorority life volunteer, both advising chapters and facilitating leadership programming at regional conferences. My master's degree is in student affairs counseling from SUNY Plattsburgh in New York, and I'm a nationally certified counselor. I currently reside in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina, and proudly work at NC State University. There's some key things that I hope you'll take away from our conversation today. I'm hoping that you'll be able to develop an understanding of the purpose of National Hazing Prevention Week, learn some basic steps in planning for NHPW in your community, identify examples of engaging activities that you can host, but also take a glimpse at some year-round prevention initiatives. And lastly, know where to access prevention resources to help you in your own efforts. Before we get started, I'd like to do a quick review though. For those of you that are already involved in the hazing prevention movement, you're probably already well informed on what hazing behaviors can consist of. But for those of you that are just starting to learn about hazing and prevention, this is great information just to touch on. Understanding hazing. Hazing is any action taken or situation created intentionally that causes embarrassment, harassment, or ridicule, risks emotional and/or physical harm to members of any group or team, whether new or not, regardless of the person's willingness to participate. If you need additional resources on understanding hazing behaviors, we've got some great resources on the frequently asked questions section of hazingprevention.org. That's really a great place to start when trying to understand or describe the concept of hazing to others. So let's talk about the purpose of National Hazing Prevention Week. There are three main objectives. First, to educate the community on the topic of hazing. What constitutes as hazing, where it can take place, its prevalence, and the dangers of the behavior. It's also an opportunity to engage the community in meaningful dialogue that really motivates individuals to contribute to active efforts to prevent or halt hazing behaviors from happening in the future. And lastly, this could also be an opportunity for you to showcase year-round hazing prevention efforts and/or kick off new initiatives. NHPW should address all three of these components. If you're only educating community members on what hazing is and the dangers of it, your community may need to think a little bit bigger. Raising awareness is absolutely important, but we want to try and go a little bit further than that. So let's talk about some simple steps in planning National Hazing Prevention Week for 2018. Number one, select a committee of identified stakeholders whose voice should be represented in the conversation and planning process. Strive to select a planning committee that involves various stakeholders, students, faculty, advisors, staff, basically anyone who works with student groups, meaning athletics, student government, honor societies, band or performance groups, etc. I'd recommend selecting enough people to successfully plan and execute and assess your week. It's a lot to plan for one person, but a 10-person committee might be a little too many. I might recommend setting a goal for maybe 3 to 6 people to serve on your committee. Number two, establish goals and outcomes. Think carefully about what your goals are for the week. What measurable change do you want to see happen as a result of individuals participating in your NHPW activities and programs? If you've celebrated NHPW in your community previously, decide on how this year should be different. Did you accomplish your goals in the past? And if not, what do you need to do or change in order to achieve the goals you set out for yourself? Number three, decide on programs and events. Think about how to achieve your outcomes and what programs will be most beneficial for your audiences. How can you incorporate organizations, faculty and staff, or students into your programming for the week? And what will work for the audience that you're trying to appeal to? You can determine what order these events should occur and make sure to consider when most people are able to attend to obviously ensure high attendance and participation. We'll talk more about sample NHPW activities a little bit later. Be sure to identify a proper location. This could be indoors or outdoors. How long they should be, attendance goals, and any audio visual needs that you will have. Number four, Produce a budget. What is your budget? Do you have one? And if you don't, consider who might be able to help with funding. Break down your budget into each program or each day of the week and have one person responsible for overseeing all expenses. Number 5, set dates. HazingPrevention.org recognizes National Hazing Prevention Week, usually during the last full week in September. However, if these dates are not ideal for your community, feel free to select a different week that works best for you. That's perfectly fine. Be sure it doesn't overlap with other important things happening that would prevent individuals from participating. Number 6, create an implementation plan. An easy way to do this is to create an event planning checklist. This includes all of your to-do planning items, a deadline for each task, and assigning a person to complete each task. Maybe the chair of your committee can be the keeper of this list. Personally, I might recommend using a shared Google Drive to stay organized in planning and also cross-collaborating. Number 7, reserve spaces and secure special guests and purchase or prepare any needed materials. So now that you have the week outlined with your programs and events, be sure to make your reservation for each space that you may need and send invitations to appropriate guests or facilitators. Most times this step really needs to be done pretty far in advance. You'll also want to purchase or borrow any materials you may need for the events. If you're trying to save a little extra money, leave the dates off some of your materials so that you can use them for a couple of years. Number 8, design and implement publicity efforts. This is my favorite. Consider who your audience is and the best way to reach them. You can advertise, obviously, on social media, through the campus or school newspaper, through the university or high school calendar system. You can communicate information via email, both with students, but also advisors, coaches, resident advisors or directors, and faculty and staff. I'd also encourage that you email your students a couple times prior to hosting National Hazing Prevention Week. I'd probably say at least 2 to 3 weeks prior, and then also 1 week prior, if not more than that. Students need to hear the message a couple times. Publicize in high traffic areas, both with print or virtual advertising, and I'm a big supporter of also advertising with in-person opportunities. Consider what departments on campus are also passionate about keeping students safe. Provide them with materials to publicize as well. Host of the week. The week prior, make sure you double check your event planning list, confirm all details, including room reservations, equipment, food, volunteers, and any other key elements. Be sure that facilitators and guests are aware of any final details and arrive early to programs and activities to ensure everything is set up properly and ready to go. Usually technology is the one thing that tends to cause issues. And number 10, evaluate your programs. Once your program has concluded, reflect on your efforts. Make a list of what went well, what you think you could improve on for the next year. It would be helpful for whoever plans the next event to have your comments and suggestions on which to build a successful week. If you host educational programs, be sure to create an assessment measure for participants and review those results of the assessments. To improve, you must know how you've done. In the process, you'll learn more about your own skills and be better able to meet student needs by producing a more successful week next time. Be sure to thank everyone who made it happen, but also remind them that NHPW is a kickoff to year-round hazing prevention efforts. So those are quick 10 steps in planning. Now, I do recognize that some of you may have already planned and hosted National Hazing Prevention Week in the past, and in that case, it might be helpful to reevaluate some of your past efforts, such as your programs and audiences. What do you want to keep or do away with? What information or events are outdated or ineffective? And are there any new groups that you need to reach out to and include? Evaluate your budget. Has it changed this year? Do you have enough funds to add more or enhance events this year? Where can you partner with other groups to increase the budget? That's a big one. You might also want to evaluate your marketing, revamp your posters or flyers with new updated information and images, strategize how to use media for PR efforts. I feel as if we have a new social media outlet coming out every year, so maybe consider how to utilize those outlets to engage our younger audiences. So I've talked a lot so far, and I'm wondering what questions or comments you all have so far in the conversation. Please feel free to use the chat box to share your questions or your thoughts. We can start with ones that maybe we've already had come in. Tracy, have we had any questions come in during the first part of the webinar?
None so far, Sarah, but while we're waiting to see if anyone has some now, could you talk a little bit about the ideal timeline for planning an effective National Hazing Prevention Week? How soon should people start?
Sure, that's a great question. I think in planning events, usually the earlier the better, but I think what is helpful in planning a whole week of events that involves a committee of people, I think it helps to create an action list of what you need to accomplish and a timeline of when you need to accomplish those items by, and kind of work backwards. So if you know that you're going to be hosting the last week in September, the traditional time, work backwards from that date, but also build in some extra time just in case it takes you a little bit longer to secure special guests or decide on a program, just so you have some flexibility prior to actually observing National Hazing Prevention Week. So then you're not stressed, there's not anxiety, but I think planning the earlier, the better, and sometimes creating that timeline can really help. Good question.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I love that backwards programming plan. I've used that a lot. I think it works really well, and that's a great suggestion. And of course, we're doing this webinar now because we think for a good fall program, people should be starting now at least.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'll just remind attendees before Sarah moves on that if you have further questions, you can type them in the chat box and we'll have more opportunities throughout the program to answer those. There also will be some opportunities for you to share and comment about things that you might be doing in your organizations or on your campus. So feel free to share in the chat box at any time.
Thanks, Tracy. So y'all are probably wondering what are some great ideas for activities or programs to host during National Hazing Prevention Week. So let's get to talking about some of those things. Here are a few examples of some activities that you could host in your community. Grab a great article or select a section of an engaging book to read and have a group discussion. This is also something that you can continue throughout the year. It doesn't necessarily need to be a one-time event. It can be a group meeting that can take place regularly, say once a month or every other week, or even once a semester. You can host group lunch and learns. This is commonly a workshop or a training for a special group within your community. Participants can obviously bring their own lunch, or if you have the funds, provide the lunch for them, as food is always a good recruitment tool. But this is also something that you can host year-round. In recent years, more and more films related to hazing have been released. You could consider hosting a film or a movie screening, followed by maybe an expert panel. Another option is hosting a fundraising event for hazingprevention.org. I can remember back when I was a student at SUNY Plattsburgh, the fraternity and sorority community hosted something called a quarter-mile coin drive, where each organization tried to raise the most money by lining up coins outside in the main courtyard. And so they would contribute their own funds and gather fundraising efforts from the community. And the winning organization received recognition, and all of the funds raised went directly to hazingprevention.org each year. Lots of university communities in particular tend to bring in an expert speaker during National Hazing Prevention Week. If you do this, check to see if your speaker would be willing to meet with student leaders following the program for one-on-one consultations or an afternoon of small group meetings. This will allow students just to unpack more of what they've learned from the speaker's talk, but also maybe do some action planning as well in moving forward. So it's a way to continue the conversation and start thinking critically about some of the things that they learned from the speaker. You could also host what's called a new member showcase series. This is where organizations present to a panel of judges their process of successfully onboarding new members of their organization or team. The organization with the best and most successful onboarding process would then receive recognition. We want to try and implement activities and programs, though, that dive a little bit deeper than just hanging a banner or signing a pledge against hazing. We want to engage individuals in the conversation and motivate them to want to take action. For those of you participating today, I'm wondering what programs or activities has your community hosted in observance of National Hazing Prevention Week that really got some great conversation going. Please feel free to share those events or programs in the chat box now. What are some great programs that you've hosted in the past that have really helped facilitate some great conversations about hazing in your community? Feel free to just add them in the chat box now. Okay, looks like y'all are coming here for some good ideas then. Tracy, are you seeing any additional notes in the chat box?
Nope, nothing so far. I just want to let attendees know that there is a tab at the bottom that you can choose to type to the entire audience or to a specific member of the audience. So just be sure if you are typing something that it is on the all entire audience tab so that everyone can see it.
Okay, so we'll keep going then. Thanks, Tracy. So if you're interested in implementing the idea of group lunch and learns or educational trainings, I've gathered just a few topic ideas that you might consider. But keep in mind the topics that you select all depend on the goals that you hope to achieve and the needs of your own community. Some of these might include healthy team builders, how to recognize and report hazing behaviors, or developing a strong partnership with your advisors on campus or at your school. Does anyone have any other great ideas for educational topics? Okay, so we'll keep going. If you'd like to incorporate the showing of a movie during National Hazing Prevention Week, here are a few films that you can consider that broach the topic of hazing. You can show the whole length of the film or pieces. Coupling a film with a panel or a small group discussion can be a great way to debrief the film and then engage in some meaningful dialogue. I'd recommend debriefing maybe in pairs, in small groups, or as a large group. Please keep in mind, though, that when you're showing a film at your school or on your campus, there's certain steps and procedures that you would need to go through to do so legally, and some of which come at a cost for certain films. There's copyright guidelines that need to be followed, and if they aren't followed, your actions could infringe on the copyright owner's rights unless you've purchased the public performance rights from the copyright owner. Some universities and schools actually already have information and resources in place regarding public film screenings, so be sure to check with your school or institution for more information as well. If you're considering a panel as part of your activities, below are a few options of individuals that you could involve. I'd recommend securing maybe between 4 and 6 panelists, just in case 1 or 2 need to cancel at the last minute, as this tends to happen. And have a moderator for the conversation. I think that can help ensure that timing goes over well and questions are asked and answered appropriately. You can draft up a couple of pre-written questions for panelists or take questions from the audience or both. But now that we've covered the purpose of National Hazing Prevention Week, some steps in planning, and some sample activities, let's talk about our final items. How to continue the conversation by implementing year-round initiatives and the resources to help you succeed. Hosting this 1 week alone will not prevent hazing from happening in your community. It's only a piece of the puzzle, and we can continue the conversation by implementing a holistic hazing prevention plan. The University of Kentucky is an institution that has previously worked to take this approach. Some of their previous efforts included the development of a cross-departmental hazing prevention coalition, a review and revision of the university hazing policy, implementation of an amnesty clause, and a website dedicated to hazing information and resources for all students on campus, not just their fraternity and sorority members and not just their athletes. Their more recent efforts included targeted programming for special groups, and also they made revisions to their amnesty clause after having it in place for a few years and evaluating its effectiveness. When speaking with Susan West, the director of fraternity and sorority life at the university, one challenge that she shared with me was continuing year-round efforts from year to year. So if there's staff turnover, for example, that can cause a challenge. So as a community, try to consider and anticipate these types of challenges as you implement prevention measures. The College of William and Mary has also worked to implement a holistic year-round prevention plan. As you can see by this slide, their efforts go well beyond just hosting National Hazing Prevention Week. They incorporate a variety of strategies to address the needs in their community. When speaking with Ann Arseneau, the Director of Student Leadership Development at the university, she shared with me that some of their initiatives took less time to implement, and some took a number of years to finally have in place. Some things just simply take more time, and that's okay. The important piece is continuing to be persistent in making positive changes. Cornell University also uses a comprehensive public health approach that addresses individuals, groups, and the institutional level, the local community, national organizations, and the broader society. Their framework is another example of addressing and combating hazing behaviors holistically. So how do you create year-round initiatives? A strong hazing prevention plan. We can talk about how to do so briefly. First, it's important to identify who should be at the table. Develop a hazing prevention coalition or team. Who are your key stakeholders? You also want to start by assessing your community needs. Just because the prevention initiative works for one school or campus doesn't mean that it will work for your community. And we can't create solutions to a problem if we don't understand what the problems are. So it's really important to assess your community needs. Next, you'll want to identify intended outcomes. So what would you like to see change as a result of your efforts? Keep in mind, you have the ability to change the following things: knowledge, skills, and/or attitudes. If you've never developed learning outcomes before, an organization called Rise Partnerships has a great free resource on their website in their curriculum design section. After you've identified your intended outcomes, next is the creation of preventative, early intervention, and response strategies. You must have all three components. Ensure each of your strategies align with the intended goals that you've identified. You'll implement your strategies and initiatives throughout the course of the year and then evaluate your effectiveness, both as you go and after a full complete year. If you're interested in learning more about how to create a holistic year-round approach to hazing prevention, send an interdisciplinary team to our Hazing Prevention Institute happening this summer. You also can register as a single person, and it's open to both college students and professionals dedicated to making the school or university environment a safe place. For more information about the Institute or to register, please visit our website under the section Educate. All right, so quick check-in. Tracy, have we had any great questions or comments come in regarding what we've talked about so far?
We have had some questions, Sarah, and I've been answering them in the question feature of the chat box. And I think you did answer some of them as well. So some of them were asked before you shared some examples, and then you went back and shared them. And Stace Sievert was asking for some examples of good books and articles. So I know you mentioned good movies, and of course the movie GOAT was based on a book, and I think that book is still a really great one for people to discuss. I also think the Atlantic article that's come out, particularly in regard to fraternities and sororities, some of those articles in magazines that are longer feature articles could be good fodder for discussion. And Sarah, do you have any others that you would recommend?
I think those are the ones that I think of right off the top of my head.
And then Jess had asked about the new member showcase series, and I'm not sure if that's something you mentioned. Or
yes.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
So the new member showcase series I've seen particularly in a fraternity and sorority community. It's something that SUNY Plattsburgh has participated in for quite a while, at least since I was a collegian. And organizations fill out an application to present information on their new member education or intake process. And then they present to a panel of judges describing the experience of new member education or intake, how they support incoming new members, what they educate them on, any systems in place for members to serve as mentors to new members. And then the organization that communicates their plan, a successful plan very well, will receive recognition for what they've presented to the panel of judges. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thanks for expanding on that more. And I think we've answered all the questions that are currently in the question box. So feel free to keep posting questions there, and I will respond in writing and then share them with Sarah for more information. And you can also post them in the chat box as well.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. All right, so moving on to the last section of our webinar. I do want to provide you all with some great takeaway resources that you will be able to use moving forward. We now offer 3 online courses that are widely being used at high schools and universities across the country. I know this is something that NC State University is implementing this upcoming year. We have at HPO a general hazing prevention 101 course, a hazing prevention course specifically for fraternity and sorority members, and one for high school students. They're interactive and they're engaging. experts in hazing prevention and previous students who experienced hazing and stood up to the behaviors were actually involved in the development of these online courses. And I participated in a lot of online trainings, both as a previous student and now as a higher education professional. And I've taken 2 of these 3 courses myself, and I've really actually enjoyed the content provided, and I think students can really connect with it. So these are definitely a couple of programs worth looking into. We also have a resource and planning guide that's created each year, 2 of them, and they're made available for high schools and for universities and colleges. And these guides often include hazing prevention related articles and best practices submitted by prevention experts. And what's great is the content is new and relevant each year. And our 2018 resource guides are available early this summer. So those are some things to keep an eye out for in the next coming weeks and months. There are also some new print materials that can be helpful in elevating your prevention efforts and your knowledge of hazing behaviors. All 3 of these materials at the top, and a great article by Dr. Linda Langford titled A Comprehensive Approach to Hazing Prevention in Higher Education Settings, are all options to review. I've read and taken great notes on the article by Dr. Linda Langford, and it's actually fantastic because it's really easy to digest and understand. So just because it's an article, don't shy away from it. Definitely a useful resource in addition to some of our other print materials. We also have a hazing law interactive state map if you need more information regarding the hazing laws within your state, and also how they compare to other surrounding states, because you will find that not all hazing laws are the same. All of these resources that I've mentioned and more are available at hazingprevention.org for your viewing and for your use. If you're a community that's just starting your hazing prevention efforts, we now have a new educational membership available, which has some really great benefits, including discounts on programs, one-on-one consultation time with HPO staff, and some free materials. If you're looking to elevate your efforts and you've already done some great prevention work, please feel free to reach out to us directly to discuss resources that will help you enhance what you're already doing in addressing the behaviors in your community. Lastly, we just have some quick updates from hazingprevention.org that I wanted to make sure I shared today. We'd love for you to join the conversation in our 40 Actions campaign. This campaign is actually a little different than previous years when we've hosted the 40 Answers campaign. So for the 40 days leading up to National Hazing Prevention Week, again, we'll be posting on our Twitter account each day one reason why individuals wouldn't step in and take action to prevent hazing. And you'll be able to share and respond each day using the hashtag and help others learn how to take an active role in addressing a hazing culture. The goal is for participants to respond by sharing what action they take in response to the excuse. When you observe National Hazing Prevention Week this year, please feel free to use the hashtag NHPW18. Be sure to include any media such as photos, articles, news stories, or videos. We would love to highlight the amazing work that your community is doing. For HPO to best provide hazing prevention information and resources to the public, we need your help. Please help us elevate our programs and resources by fundraising for HPO during National Hazing Prevention Week or by becoming a sponsor. Sponsorship levels start as low as $1,000. Also, if your community is interested in fundraising, we do have some fundraising kits available on our website, and a link to those fundraising kits is also provided in the chat box, which Tracy included a little bit earlier. So thank you for taking the time to participate in our webinar today. If you have any final questions or comments, please feel free to stick around and share them in the chat box, and we can address those questions before wrapping up for the day. You can also contact us at info@hazingprevention.org or give us a call. We'd love to connect with you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for participating.
Sarah, we do have a good question from Vanessa about minority serving institutions that are currently hosting successful National Hazing Prevention Weeks. And I'm responding to her in writing so other people can get the information as well. But I wondered if you had any examples that you could share with her on that.
I think I need to look into some of the schools in which I've worked with and follow up. That's a great question, though.
I'll mention as I was typing to Vanessa that hazingprevention.org just hosted a webinar that focused specifically on culturally based organizations. That was done in March, and it is available in our online store for people to purchase and go back and listen to. That is also going to be a topic that we're talking about at our institute this summer, specifically about cultural implications for our messaging. So how we are ensuring that we're reaching all the audiences that we want with the specific messaging that is going to relate to them, and really thinking about cultural implications in our programming efforts, in our prevention efforts, and in our messaging and how we are reaching students. And Vanessa also asked about if we have a listserv for schools to be able to share data and kind of think tank with each other. And we have just created that as a part of our new memberships. So Sarah mentioned our educational membership, and I'll tell you a little bit about how we have organized our memberships this year. So we've created some brand new memberships really to support campuses and organizations in their efforts. Sarah mentioned the first one, which is really for schools who've never done programming on any kind of significant scale in regard to hazing prevention before, and they're just looking to get started. So the educational membership really focuses on supporting campuses who are planning perhaps their first National Hazing Prevention Week observance. And so that's kind of the basic level. That would be the first step. And then the second step would be to ideally send a team, but if not a team, an individual to our Summer Prevention Institute, so you can get the basic information on the prevention process. That is a complicated, in-depth process. It's not just a program. It doesn't happen just once. You know, Sarah highlighted the steps to a year-round prevention program. That's something we've been focusing on a great deal in our webinars this year. And so that would be the second step, to come get that basic prevention education. And then the third step is this year we created for the first time an academy membership. And that really is to support campuses in their ongoing prevention efforts. So once you've started, maybe National Hazing Prevention Week is your first step, you come to the Institute and get that training on how to do a prevention plan similar to the ones that Sarah highlighted from Cornell and William and Mary and the University of Kentucky. Then you can get some support, and that does include, Vanessa, a listserv option. It's probably going to be through Facebook, where to allow people to share ideas and support each other, because we know how difficult it can be to gather support and actually get those efforts going. They do take quite a bit of time and energy, but it is what is most successful in actually addressing this issue. So we want to provide schools and organizations the support they need to actually take those steps. So that's what the Academy membership is for. So that information is actually also on our website. You can look at information about our educational memberships It's still not too late to register for our Summer Institute in June, and you can get information about the Academy membership as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about any of those programs or any other programs and services that we have. So let's see, we have a couple more questions. Kevin is asking about getting a copy of the slides. It's interesting, Kevin, we've been talking about that, about providing that. And I think we are going to make those available on our website for people to access, because we want you to have the steps and the information and being able to plan your National Hazing Prevention Week. So look for more information on that. And we probably will provide a link in our National Hazing Prevention Week resource guides as well for people to access the planning slides from this webinar. And we got a thank you from Robert Murray. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm not seeing any other questions, but if you have any, feel free to type them now in the question or the chat box. All right, well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you to Sarah for putting together a really great program. And I just want to encourage all of you to plan a good National Hazing Prevention Week observance on your campus. And please let us know about what you did using the hashtag and sharing the information on social media, and even feel free to email us directly with what you've done so we can share it with others. That will complete today's webinar.